Welcome to the Whitetail Legacy Podcast.
And we get the back view of him. And I mean, it's just a mega.
52 yards is a long shot. Magnum PI is what we named him. No idea.
Just a magnum.
Yeah, just a magnum.
Come on, Cam, last year we said probably 150, mid 150.
Yeah.
Same doe from the morning come out with that 9-pointer.
Here steps out this 90-inch 8-pointer. You're like,
I'm like, okay, well, there's still a buck back there grunting.
Yeah.
And then out steps like another 90-inch 8-pointer. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm like, deer right there.
Yeah, like
and he's already
yards.
30 yards.
Yeah.
He was literally 5 yards from the base of the tree. Could have been, had a buck down at 1:40 in the afternoon, back there deep on public. 3 does come out pretty early. It was like 245, 24 yard shot, sent the combat veteran. And I tell you what, man, dude, it just smoked. We always get so jacked up when the other person kills. It's just almost like we got it done.
Yeah. And when you killed that doe, I was like, hell yeah, man.
And we come down here to Missouri.
My ass told me one more time, I'm like, is it a good buck? And he goes, yeah, real good, solid buck. I'm like, all right, boom. And the deer just drops. Sure. Super special to me.
Whitetail Legacy Podcast, bringing you back to the hunt and leaving a legacy. Baller Rut.
All right, guys, here we are with Dylan Dulaney on the line. How you doing tonight, Dylan?
Doing great, guys. Doing great.
We're going to talk to you about a buck you shot here this past fall. Anything with an extra main beam or something large coming off the base, I really enjoy. And I think it's cool because you don't get to see a whole bunch of that.
No.
And your buck seems to have fit that bill.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So that beam is actually brand new this year.
Nice.
Never had that beam before. And I can't remember how long. I think it's 12 inches long coming off the base.
It's large.
And we'll get into the story more, but it's probably my fault, the reason he has the beam.
All right.
That's cool. So
before we get into the story there, just go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners and just kind of what you do for a living and how long you've been hunting and stuff.
For sure. So my name's Dylan Dulaney. I'm a pharmacist. Recently graduated pharmacy school last May. I've been hunting, I guess, since I was six years old. I grew up on a cattle farm, and that's kind of where we started with my grandfather, and really picked up bow hunting about when I was 14. Got really serious about it, and pretty much now all I'll do is bow hunt for the majority of the time. I'm gonna hunt once or twice a year, and but I just love hunting all forms of it. Turkey, deer, and duck are the main three, and it's a passion, kind of an obsession for sure. When I'm not doing farm things, that's what I'm always dabbling my extra time with. And baseball, I have 2 boys, so I have a 10-year-old that's about to be 11, and then a 14-month-old. So,
oh wow, hit the reset button there. You're about to get real hot and heavy here in the baseball, being 10.
Oh well, yeah, he plays travel ball, so we've been doing it to 7, and that's every weekend is travel ball until fall, and then it's hunting.
Right.
Luckily, he likes to hunt, so that's good.
Where do you live at currently?
So currently, I live in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas. I work in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It's northeast Arkansas. It's like in the Mississippi Delta.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I'd seen that your buck was from Arkansas, I kind of wanted you to maybe go into a little bit of the deer hunting in Arkansas. You don't really hear much about Arkansas on the deer hunting scope. So maybe if you go ahead and describe that to some of our listeners as much as you want to tell.
Yeah, for sure. So Arkansas it's a great state for deer hunting. I mean, obviously we have great deer numbers across really like when you start heading west from here, you'll cross Black River and you get into like the foothills of the Ozarks. Then you get in the Ozarks and they have great deer populations. Now, obviously the rack size doesn't, is not huge, but they have a lot of deer, and deer hunting is definitely part of a strong part of our heritage in Arkansas. There's a lot of deer hunters. We have long seasons and kill a lot of deer, but the bigger deer, due to pretty much once you cross Black and you get going out west, especially northwest Arkansas and even further south, you're on the mountains, Ozark Mountains. Not it's rocky terrain, not much, crops. But in the Delta region, the deer density is not as high because a lot of it's cleared. So therefore you don't have as much, woods for deer to live and browse and go and live in. And it's pretty much all rice fields and cotton fields and corn and beans, but not rolling terrain or anything like that, like in the Midwest. But there's some very, very large deer in the bottoms, like around the Black River, Mississippi River, White River. Those bottom ground areas hold a lot of really, really big whitetails.
Yeah, that's the Legend Woods. Maybe like a year and a half ago, he was from Arkansas, right?
Yeah.
He was on the Mississippi River, right?
He was boating in.
He was
miles
boating in on the Mississippi River, and he killed an absolute slob down there right off the river. So,
yeah, I mean, big deer have wet feet in Arkansas.
Looks like you're wearing black socks out there.
I mean, pretty much all the big deer that I've killed I've come in with a boat, and this one as well. So
nice.
All right. Yep. Did you have a name for the deer before we get into it here?
I went a long time and never had a name for the deer. It was just the only deer because I was not.
Yeah, right.
That's it for a while. After I hit him and wounded him, he got a name. And it's nothing special. It's just Scar, because he had this scar on his left shoulder, and it was always a reminder of just a terrible night. It's a terrible, terrible night, October night. So
I would say from the post I seen that to get in contact with you, it seems like it's going to be a pretty good story here. So I'll let you go ahead and start from the beginning or wherever you want to, and go into much detail as you want. And let's hear about the story of Scar.
All right, awesome. So like I mentioned earlier, I grew up on a cattle farm, hunting, bow hunting and gun hunting. And the deer we have were not huge, but got into bow hunting. I was trying to get into hunting some bigger deer, and I was hunting a lot of public, and didn't have much permission on private in like the bottoms, around the river bottoms and stuff. But actually picked up some permission on a property, on a farmer. He's a rice farmer, farms about 2,000 acres, but of that 2,000 acres, there might be in total 30 to 40 acres of woods along the river that runs to that farm. And so at first I didn't know what to think. We'll see what it's got. So I went in, scouted these little woodlots out, because they're just little woodlots, little patches of woods up and along this river, and some ditches that he farms and I have permission to. So didn't see a lot of deer scouting at all. Seen a few tracks, but I found a pretty heavily used trail. This was 2000, let's think, 16. It's 2016 when I got permission that fall. I went in there as November 19th, and I was scouting. I found a good trail crossing a creek, like a little ditch that's coming off the river, and put a trail camera on it and left. Well, I went to go visit my brother-in-law. He was in the military in San Antonio, and I got back like a day before Thanksgiving. Well, I went in there and pulled that camera, and here he was. He was daylight 3 times in 2 days on that trail. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, if I just hung a stand right there, I'd have killed him like the next day, but I had no idea. And so that fired me up, obviously. And at this time, I never hunted that terrain. I didn't really know what I was doing. So I proceeded to hunt. And this time I was an undergrad, so I could hunt a lot. So I hunted, I think there was, at that point, there was like, I guess it'd be like 70, 80 days left in season, but really true season before they start dropping antlers, about 50 days left in season. I hunted that same woodlot in that same area, I think 37 mornings and and like a lot of afternoons, but I could go before I went to school. And I mean, I hunted and I did not see not one deer. I just kept hunting because I didn't know what I was doing, guys. I'm telling you, this deer has taught me more and more about deer hunting than I ever dreamed or could learn from anybody else. Because not only did, hunting the deer, you learn about deer and their patterns and how they behave and bed and move along this terrain. Because that's one thing. Every deer in its terrain is going to be different. I mean, there's trends obviously, but you really got to figure out the niche of that area. But diving into podcasts, I never listened to a podcast, deer hunting podcast, until 2016. I mean, that's when I started like picking up, trying to learn more and more and more. Because, like I said, my grandfather, he doesn't really bow hunt, but I thought, well, the best way to do it is just learn as much as you can and pick it up and be able to, plug it in places that you think it might be useful. But so I started, engulfing myself in all of hunting that I could find out in order to better my odds for the years to come. So started after that, season, I didn't have any luck. Never saw him again. Never got another photo of him. So I kind of chalked it up like, I don't know, maybe he was just passing through on a hot doe and that's it. Well, I throw a mineral station out that summer. And I start getting him like every week in the summer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he lives here. I just got to figure out where he was at. I was just hunting the wrong woodblock or something. So, going and, replenishing that station, every month and pulling the camera, checking the cards. I mean, he's on there like clockwork. I mean, I'm like, my gosh, I mean, who knows? I might get him first week because this year, like I said, it's all rice, but they planted beans about half a mile or so from that specific woodblock where I dropped the mineral station out where I first got his photos at. And, I thought I might could catch him going out to those beans, if he's bedded somewhere in that block or along the river, and that kind of thing. But like August, from August 15th, August 25th, every single year, which I didn't know this then, he just disappears. Like he's gone, the shift, kind of thing. So I don't get any photos of him and I can't figure it out. I'm like frustrated. So I just start scouting a lot and looking for him, trying to find sign because I'm not really finding much sign in that area at all. I just recently purchased like a climber so I could try to be a little bit more mobile, and that'll play more into the story later. But that was a really dry fall in 2017, and there was some ground that the farmer owned on up the river about a mile and across, and it was I think it's like a 14-acre block of timber. And I said, well, you know what? I'll go up there and kind of poke around. I've never been up there and see if you might have moved it north. So I actually walked the river, the bottom of the river. That's how dry it is. This river is real small. This isn't a Mississippi or anything like that. It's a really small river. So it goes up and down real fast. They've dredged the river. So there's no flood. There's like no floodplain or anything like that. It's just the river, and it will get out, but it has to get really high to get out. But this year there's no rain, super dry. So I walked north down the bottom of that riverbed, hop into that wood block, and I found my first oak tree ever in that area, in the terrain that we were in. And I was like, hey, this is good because from hunting the hills, I know they love oaks. So I was getting pretty excited, and I walked about 20 yards and found this giant scrape, and I'm like, good sign. And this is like October, I think like 13th or something. We have fall break. At this point, I'm a first year in pharmacy school, so had a really busy schedule, but we have fall break like the 13th to the 16th or 17th or something. And so that's like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this is a Thursday. Well, I hung a camera, and I was going to come back on Saturday and check it. And I hung the camera, and he was on the scrape 2 afternoons in a row, right before daylight. So I said, I'm going to kill him. I thought it was over, And so I went in, and I couldn't get in the tree that I wanted to get into with the climber. So I had to carry those freaking, 6-foot sections of ladder that you piece together and strap on the tree, and 25-pound Millennium all the way down there. And I hung it Saturday afternoon after I got that photo. And then I planned to hunt him. There was going to be a little bit of rain that would come in, and the cold front's coming in, and we had a red moon the next that weekend was a red moon weekend essentially. So I was pretty excited about the conditions. I thought I had a chance on him, Did not hunt the morning. Went to church. Told my wife, I said, "Look, after church, I'm gonna get in the stand like 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I think I got a good chance to kill him." So got out of church, went up there, got in the stand about it's like 2:45. Actually, there was a little small tree in the way for a good shot to that scrape. It's like 25 yards shot, but I had to trim the tree. So I trimmed the tree, I cut it down, it made a gigantic racket, got in the stand. I was like thinking there's no chance. The setup on this essentially is the riverbank runs north and south, and I'm maybe 20 yards off the river. And there's to my west, there's crop fields, and I'm in this little, like I said, this little small block of timber that has a little high point on it. The rest of it floods real bad, and this has some oaks on top of it. And there was a persimmon tree that was freshly dropping as well. And there's not very many of those at all. It's like I found two from out of all this property that I can find and that I can hunt these last few years. About I don't know, it was like 5:45. Here comes a buck working directly down the riverbank to me, and it's real thick, real small timber, and it's not open hardwoods. And so he gets like within 60 yards, and I realize, crap, it's him. And so the wind we had was it's coming out of the northwest, so it was essentially one of those quartering like crosswinds. So it was like hitting him like in the side of the face, and he's walking straight down the riverbank. And then he cuts back, and there's this heavily used trail that goes right by that scrape. And I'm thinking, well, he's going to walk. It's going to be perfect. He's never going to get my wind. He's going to walk 25 yards. I'm going to smoke him like he has every other afternoon. Little did I know that he had a trail that ran parallel with this main trail that I guess, he used, some other bucks used. But anyway, he was walking straight down this trail, and he gets to 15 yards, and he's quartering to me. And at this point, I'm shaking like a leaf. I've never seen a deer this big in my life. So I come to full draw, and he stops, and he's eating acorns, and he's quartering to me. And it was a learning experience. I should have never taken the shot. I should have been more patient, allowed him to walk behind me, because honestly, my wind probably would have went over his head. I thought he would win me. I was getting nervous. I rushed the shot. I hit him high shoulder at 15 yards, got like 4 or 5 inches of penetration. So I was just like, dadgummit, man. Immediately, like it's not good. So I just back out, go home, and search the next like 2 days for him. No blood, nothing. I hunted a little bit for him, but then I thought maybe if he's hurt, trying to heal, I don't need to put any stress on him. I'm just going to back out for like 3 weeks, go hunt some public that I've been scouting. I actually killed my third biggest buck while I was not hunting him on another piece of big public and on the St. Francis River. Sunken Lands is public ground. It's like he was like a 135 buck. He was very nice 8 point. So I backed out, and then I went in and checked the camera that I had hung early in the summer on a old scrape, like a licking branch I found. And as I'm sure y'all know, they use those licking branches year round. It's like a social place. But he showed up on camera. It was like November 28th or so. It was in the same woodblock he showed up in the year prior. When I was the very first woodblock that I ever scouted and hung camera in. And he visits that woodblock every year, by the way. Every single year from November 23rd to November 30th, he's in there. I mean, every year until this year. He's no longer around. But so, it gives me hope. He has, at this point, he looked good, looked healthy. I thought, man, he's going to be fine. It was just kind of a flesh wound. That's what I thought originally. Well, hunted him, didn't have much luck. And by the winter, he shed one side like on January 4th or so. And he was already starting to get this kind of like pocket, like this like pus pocket on his shoulder. Well, 2018 summer, I did the same thing, put the mineral out, and started getting him every week, just like last summer. But he's lost like 50 inches, and it looks sick, and has this giant pus pocket hanging off his shoulder. And there's some pictures on Facebook as well of that, like in that post. I don't know which post you saw, but I could send y'all some more pictures. But anyway, so I'm just sick, I feel terrible. Hate that, that's happening to him. And I decide, I said, man, he's lived this long. He's probably going to make it, but I decided to not hunt him whatsoever, put zero stress on him, and just let him be and see what happens. That was my plan. But monitor with trail cameras to still get that data that I could use in 2019. And at this point, I had scouted out every woodblock I could up and down that river. It's about, about a 2 mile stretch of little pockets of wood blocks I could hunt up and down this little small river. Like I said, about 30, 40 acres in total of woods that I could hunt, and kind of put trail cameras everywhere, trying to figure them out. So he goes to that year, and he pops the pus pocket, heals up fine. And I guess I never explained what he looked like to start with, but he was like a clean 10, probably 160, 170, just beautiful 10-point, picture perfect, split brows, both sides, just a beautiful buck. In 2016, when I first started hunting him, 2017 is when he goes to an 8. He drops down to an 8, and lost like 50 inches of antler. I mean, he's probably less than 115 maybe. It's not. I mean, it is insane, and he never got very big, and his body looked poor. But anyway, so the following summer, same thing, same scenario. I guess that would be 2019. 2019, he blows back up, but he's a beautiful 8-point, gigantic eye guards. He's probably if I was just guessing, probably like a 150, 168. I mean, just a toad 8-point, gigantic beams, beautiful buck. So make a long story short, that year I hunted him quite a bit when the wind was right, and I started accessing him through the river. So I started leaving a boat in the river all year, because the way this river's cut, Strudge, there's no access point. You can't just put a boat in and out. So if you want access to the river, you gotta leave a boat in it. So started leaving a boat in it, and accessing from the river and hunting like maybe 15, 20 yards off the banks. Like not imposing my will too much, because I figured out the way these bucks work along this river is they lie on the edges of these wood pockets, and they see you coming from like 400 or 500 yards. Like you can't get to them. Like if you drive up, walk, they know you're there. So that's why I started seeing a lot more deer, because previously, was not seeing any deer. And what turned me on to that idea was the way I accessed that little piece when I shot it. I came in from the river, but it was dry. So that's raised the bar of like success way up. I had 4 encounters with him in 2019. One of them being like 23 yards, but it was just too thick, no shot. I'd had to take a chest shot. It was no good. And just never really happened. But it was a great year. Learned a lot about the deer. So, another thing when you talk about his age too, because like in 2019, he's probably when I first found him in 2016, like I said, he's huge. He's got to be at least 4 or 5 years old, at least. And then, we're getting to, 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, he could be 9 or 10 at this point. So going into this summer, he's like at least 10. 9, at least 9, he could be 12. And the taxidermist, by the way, said he's never seen a jaw like this. Like he's, a wild deer. He's probably 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that. He has not a tooth in his head, which explains a lot too about 2020, because 2020 story is a lot different. They had mowed down the riverbanks. So like usually the riverbanks are all grown up and they bed along this river up and down it. But they mowed them that summer and cut roads in them, and the farmers were using them for access. And I only got like 4 photos of him in the summer of 2020. So I was like, man, and then he disappeared, and I had 0 photos of him in season for 2020. And, but he always went north. So I just assumed, okay, he's got to be north. He's got to be north. And I picked up one photo of him like November 8th or 9th, like a terrible picture. And I was like, that's got to be him. Me and my buddy that hunts that I hunt a lot with. It's like going back and forth because we could just see this is when he grew the beam coming out of his head. That's 11 or 12 inches. And I can't remember how long it is, but the extra main beam. We saw that beam, and I said, that's got to be him. It's just a blurry picture at night. And so we were hunting, and I couldn't, wouldn't have any luck. We kind of get my story straight. But anyway, I think it was November, I don't know, not 20th or 19th or 20th. And I was on another buck that was pretty good on the same river. Kind of really thought there was no chance. I thought maybe he's getting old. I don't know. I thought he died before I got that one photo of him, really, because he'd been so regular on the cameras historically. And so I went in. I was hunting up north, like I said, and I was planning to hunt that same block down south originally from November 23rd to like the end of November as much as I could, because I knew historically he showed up in that wood block every single year, checking for does and stuff. Well, I was up north hunting another buck, like I said. And I was on one side of the river, and I hunted that morning, saw a decent buck, and I had an idea that I was in the game on another buck. But anyway, walking out, I walked past this tiny little wood block that I've never hunted before, and this is kind of a God thing for sure, because walking to my truck, and this little wood block can't be more than like, I think 4 or 5 acres, maybe max, maybe 3 acres. There's a slough that runs down the edge of it, and I'm walking down this field road, and a mallard is in this slough, and he jumps up and he's flying, and I'm just watching him fly, but he's flying super, super low, like maybe 5-10 feet off the ground, and he flies right by this giant rub. And I'm like, I've never seen this rub before. I'll probably walk by this little wood block like, I don't know, 10, 15 times already this year, just going towards the river. And so I had to go there and check it out, and so there's another rub and another rub and another rub. And I walked back there about 20 yards, just rub. And there's another little rise, and it's got one oak tree, and then this, we call it like a swamp oak, and comes out, it's got great licking branches all over it. And then about 40 yards behind that is a big slough. And in Arkansas, on the bottoms, they love to bed, like I said, in the water or on little bitty islands in sloughs. They feel very safe. It had 4 scrapes around it. So I was like, my gosh. And luckily I have a mobile stand, like a really nice mobile setup now from like Lone Wolf Custom Gear. I bought this year, and I had it at the house, but I just hung a set that morning and moved the set for that afternoon. Like I already knew where I was going to hunt that afternoon, but I found the sign on the way out. So I run home immediately, go get my little run and gun stand, and get back out there, and I'm ready to rock at like 2:15. So I'm sitting there, and as I'm hanging the stand, I'm like 4 sticks up, I hear like a buck bust and jumps in the water, and like, I mean, I don't know if it's a buck or no, but a deer like busted. At that point, I'm like, hey, like I said, not very big block of woods. I'm thinking that might have been the buck that's making all this signs. And I didn't know it was Scar, but kind of, you kind of hope and pray that it might be. I thought it might have been the buck I was hunting. Just I pushed him a little bit, and he moved across the river. But anyway, turns out, I think, at that point it was getting dark around, I was like 6:05 is like when it's getting really dark that time of year. It was like 5:53. That was like isn't it 5:45 or 5:47 or something? A buck coming out of that slough, and the first glimpse I get of him, he's like 50 yards, and there's that extra beam coming off the base, and I'm like, wow, I had chill bumps at this point. Oh, another thing about this, I mentioned bow hunting the whole time. I've not taken my muzzleloader at all through all these years, and I was hunting with that morning, and I had a muzzleloader with me. So Just full disclosure, I killed the buck with a muzzleloader, but I shot him at 8 yards with that muzzleloader. He walks all the way out of that slough, walks those scrapes, works every one of those scrapes, and this is like a 4 or 5 minute deal, and I'm just like, unbelievable, and it's just awesome. I mean, just tearing them up, branches all in them, just tearing it up. And then he walks down the trail and he's walking to me. There's another scrape a little closer going towards the riverbank. And he's going to walk to that one and make that. But anyway, he gets to 8 yards and I'm just behind the scope. And I'm just like, I'm kind of nervous. But then I realize I just say, hey, Dylan, slow the game down, breathe. You're not going to mess it up again. And I shoot him. He runs 15 yards and falls over. So that was it. That was the story. And called all my buddies.
Nice, man. 8 yards. That's how it goes. You go in there, you're just effort, trying. And then he's just right there. We've been there. You're like, okay, I'm taking the gun. I'm going to shoot a doe. Boom, giant.
Hey, and at that point, I didn't care if it was or a bow, but, obviously it'd been kind of sweet to get him a bow because it all started with that. But, hey, that type of deer, the story I had, all the history.
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, that old of a deer. That's
honestly,
awesome.
Honestly, it feels like, he won the whole time, and maybe it was like a God thing. He just didn't really want to die in the woods. He'd rather die on my wall and just walks out and says, hey, man, here I am.
Yeah. All right. I've lived a good life. Time to roll out.
Yeah, for sure. So
let me tear these scrapes up one more time. Let me tell everybody I'm rolling out.
Right. I think it's pretty cool that you got to watch the show for 4 to 5 minutes for him to come in.
Oh, and it was awesome. I wish I'd had
when you said that. Right when you said that, I think that's why I like turkey hunting so much, because you get to view your animal so much longer. I think usually when I'm deer hunting and it's an encounter with a buck, it's like wham, bam, shot, see ya.
Yeah.
It just goes super fast. But to be able to watch a deer and do his thing in his natural element, it's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. That's my favorite thing about bow hunting, to be honest, is you get to see these deer, in their natural space and just be kind of a fly on the wall. And just, I love the feeling of like, they have no idea I'm in the woods, but it's awesome.
That's what we need to do. We need to think like a fly. So we're just like barely out there, not getting blown at all the time.
Instead of a gorilla.
Yeah.
I'm a gorilla over in the tree. I need to reorganize myself to a fly so they don't see me. But that's how it seems like it. We did last episode. You just kept going after him. Kept trying new things and kept hunting. And like you said, you've found a spot, gave up on the other spot, and went for it. That's something that we're pretty bad about. If we have a spot in mind, we're like, okay, we're going there. Then we'll find really good sign, and we'll be like, but that other spot,
it's hot.
And every time we're wrong.
It feels like
every time. Man, I mean, I just think mobile hunting, and I didn't do this prior to, but I've really just went full in, and like I said, I've researched and read and did everything I could. But the two places, the two groups of people that really interest me the most are the hunting beast, Dan and Fault, and the DeQuistos. I mean, I think, for a guy that can't hunt a ton, and being really, really efficient with your time, that is by far the best way to see more deer and be in deer than any other way to hunt, because it's just like you keep them guessing. I mean, since I started doing this, like this season, I hunted the same tree twice all year. Every other set was, a new set, mainly with that mobile setup. I mean, it's well worth the money. I would totally save and get one. I mean, not necessarily that brand. I'm not trying to be brand specific or anything, but any of them, there's pretty much every company now has some type of light mobile setup that you can throw on your back and go and be really light and mobile and nimble. I mean, even a saddle, for some people it might be, but that mobile game, and like knowing, like, he didn't have a clue I was there. And, if I would have had a, pre-hung set, I guarantee you might get 1 or 2 shots maybe, and you got to pick it, perfect, versus being able to hunt sign and be versatile and hunt the wind and try to get the wind, not necessarily 100% in your favor, but a little bit like you're cheating it. And you can cheat it a lot more too if you're always moving around. So
I would say we were probably 90% mobile last year, and we probably hunted 50 plus days, and we were probably 90% mobile. So 5 days we were in a preset stand. When you do go to a preset stand, you're like, wow, this is
nice. Yeah, it's super.
You're like, I can set up in 7 minutes.
For sure. I mean, it's so nice when you don't have to throw one together. I hate putting one up in the mornings. I hate that.
It's tough, man. In the dark, you're like,
put it up in the afternoon before, hunt that afternoon, hunt that morning, tear it down.
Yeah, that's what we do a lot too. You get up in that tree and there's no shooting. You're like, damn it.
Yeah.
You're like, if anything comes through in the morning, I'm screwed anyways. So we've been doing it now where we're like, okay, that tree, they're shooting. If we want to go anywhere in this area, we'll get in that tree and mark it down on the map for the future. And you want to throw a set in here, you got a tree kind of already mapped out to where you think you at least have some shooting. Yeah. And then another thing is some trees, it seems like, you can get a certain height, and other trees you hang in the morning and you're like, man, I'm like 12 foot. And I was like 16 or 18 the other day, and I can't shoot at all with 12, but I can shoot a bunch at 18. So definitely a tough, but like I said, we've switched to that, and we've had a bunch of encounters since we've done that. Right on the edge encounters too. So we're almost really down to fine tuning it. We just need a little luck on our side and we'll be in the dice. But you mentioned Dan. We've recorded one with Dan, and we have can we sneak it out? Way out.
Yeah, way out.
We have an episode that we recorded with Dan that's absolutely epic, but we're saving it till season. But it's something Dan's never talked about, and it's super
I can't
cool.
wait.
So it's one of the. I was like intrigued, like in depth the whole entire time he was talking. It was awesome. So anything that guy says
like
is
against the grain completely. Like, what you quote unquote, learn from TV, I guess. Yeah. Which works.
You watched it Drury's and you watch him, you're like, these guys are night and day doing stuff different.
But hey, they both get it done. I mean, it's just a totally different, scenario.
I think they both understand the deer that they're hunting, the type of deer that they're hunting,
and the terrain that they're hunting them in.
That's what it takes to kill them. And we're hunting different terrain that we're used to, and we were trying to hunt them like the deer that we were in the past, and you just can't kill them that way. You just got to relearn. You got to relearn everything, and that's like we said. I don't know how many times we said on this podcast. If we went to like anywhere with big woods with hills and stuff, we'd be like, I don't even know what to do. Just sit here and try it out. We'd have to relearn everything because that's not. We're used to hunting like tiny woodlots like you and pinches and
like, bro, you got a cornfield around here?
Yeah, strip mine ground and stuff like that. We just bopping around and doing our thing. But if we got into something we didn't understand, it would take. We always say it takes like 2 years to understand how the deer use the property before you could even get on the edge of killing.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. It takes time, and there's no way to rush the process. You just got to love the process.
Yeah,
no matter where you're at. Because that's the best part about it. The whole story. The deer's great, but leading up to that moment was,
the missed opportunity on the shot. You beat him, but you just couldn't seal the deal, and then you get to beat him again and get closure. That's where
it made me grow so much as a hunter. Though, if I would have got him the first time. That was it's kind of luck, Look, I just walked up on some great sign and hung a set, and it happened. But I learned so much more from 2017 till now. From that time, okay, so, and I'm not trying to brag by no means by this, but from 2017 to 2020, before that, I'd never killed anything with my bow or a gun that was, over 120 inches. From 2017 to 2020, I know that I've killed 1, 2, 3, 4 bucks that are over 125.
Nice.
If
you can kill every year, you're doing something right. You're getting something figured out on the ground.
Yeah, and that was mainly, I think I contribute the most to the mobile thing because one of the bucks was in Illinois, and the rest of them are in the river bottoms. And one of them was in the old hill ground that we hunt, the foothills. Nothing big, no big woods, but like cattle farm type stuff. But staying mobile is by far the the best thing that I've ever done with hunting. And then understanding that off wind.
Yeah. We're gonna push the limits on that this year pretty hard. We're gonna risk them, try to just be right like on the edge of the edge, and see if we don't get more encounters. If we get winded anyway, so
Yeah.
like we don't even need to hunt the wind as much as we get winded.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah. I mean, I like the whole theory of like Dan talks about like, bumping deer and stuff like that. And if you bump them the right way, or, one time and you're mobile, like it's almost like it assures the deer that, hey, I'm in the right spot. I didn't die. So why would I leave? Why would I leave if it worked? I mean, obviously if you're doing it every day or something like that. Yeah. But, once or twice, I mean, I don't think it phases them at all. If anything, it reassures them, hey, I got this thing figured out.
yeah, for sure. All right. Well, you got anything else for him?
No,
Right.
I was glad to hear the story.
Yeah,
and man, just year after year, and being able to compile all that data, and just knowing from the 23rd to the 30th he's going to be here. I really like that. And when a deer's in clockwork on summer, I like that too. Even though for us it doesn't usually work out all the way to season, but it's at least nice to get some good pictures of a nice buck and make it feel like you're doing something right, at least in the summertime.
Yeah, for sure. And like, and it sounds like y'all hunt small bucks timber like this?
Yeah,
in
a lot
country?
of times. Yeah.
So the y'all's bucks, it seems like, they just hop from like woodblock to woodblock to woodblock to woodblock for those short spurts of time, because I feel like everyone that I would find, there would be certain bucks that would be there, that time of year.
Yeah, we have one buck that's there like the first 5 days of October, pretty good, and then he's gone. And then he'll make like 2 appearances the rest of the year. And then we have one that comes in like mid-October and normally kind of chills. And then we have a lot that are on there for about 27 minutes, 30 minutes. Like legitimate, we have one mobile on one end, one on the other end, 30 minutes, he's off the farm. Like you just got to be there in the right 30 minutes. It's ridiculous. You're like, what in the heck? And they're running a half mile to the next timber block across open ag.
Yeah, I've seen them do that
in a giant highway. You know what I mean? Like,
just straight across. Yeah, broad daylight.
Later, bro. And then a week later, you get another 30-minute shot when they're coming back. You've got to be there within that hour. But we've seen multiple deer in that. This dude's just cruising, and they're always on a mission. They're never just like he says, our deer just aren't like moseying around. They're like, I'm getting through this piece on to the next piece, because just there's not enough does there that are holding them.
They're just like, I'm up here on the edge of my territory.
Yeah. Go ahead. As wild as you said that. Go ahead.
I would say the deer are just like they're like, man, I'm up on the north end of my territory. I need to get back down to where I feel more comfortable. And that's why they're just kind of zooming through there. And there's no really other deer on the property. It don't hold deer. It's just more of a pass through, like we've said. And you just got to be there at the right time.
Yeah. And that's how a lot of these wood blocks, I think, are for people is I was talking to a guy at T-ball practice, and he hunts south of Sibolds, and he's like, before shotgun, there's like just a few deer, and he's like, during shotgun season, we just murder deer. He's like, everybody's seeing a ton of does and bucks everywhere. I'm like, well, that makes sense, because during shotgun season, we have nothing.
Right.
And they only got to go like half mile. So it's like shotgun comes, and they're like, all right, it's November 20th. It's time to vacate this north of this road. Everything's south of that. But that's just how it works for us. But we've been like, okay, we're going to save this piece and not hunt it October, kind of let these deer be fresh. Complete opposite this year. We're going to pound the crap out of it in October, and it's going to be burnt out by the time the rut comes. But but
there's nothing there in October to save it for. So
I mean, why the deer are there in October. I'm like, all right, we'll just wait them out. And
just make a home.
Just stay on that sign. Just stay on that sign. That's the main thing. So. But yeah, like for bucks, I can echo exactly what you're saying. A lot of the deer I see, and many of the encounters I've had with him, it's like he's trotting. He's in a hurry to get to where he needs to go, because he knows where he needs to be safe, and it's daylight, so I gotta. I mean, it's like that, and how comfortable he was where I finally killed him at. It makes me wonder if he was there, if that was his home, because he's so old too, and he wasn't moving in 2020. if he'd been there like the entire time. Like that's where he like lived.
He
and
could
felt so
have,
comfortable because I'd never found that much sign either. That was another thing up and down these little wood blocks. There's not a ton of sign, but there was so much sign in that one spot that I've never found that much sign hunting where I was specifically hunting at for him. So it makes me think maybe that was like his legit home. And I'd never been in that wood block because I thought overlooked little piece, like little tiny thing.
And that's where they hide, man, those tiny little overlooked pieces. But
one last question. I know you had all this data and stuff from him through all the years. After you killed him, was there anything that you kind of pieced together other than maybe just what you had said right there?
After I killed him or while I was hunting?
After you shot him. Cody and I have had, maybe a handful of deer that after we ended up getting the buck that we're after, we finally had a couple extra key points.
The neighbor finally starts talking about the deer, and then some stuff starts collecting, or you kill him in a certain area.
You're like, okay, for 2 weeks in October when I didn't have him on cam, he was over on the neighbors or something like that.
Right. And really, unfortunately, I didn't get much of that, which was kind of nice and reassuring that, usually if you kill a deer like that, people are going to text you or, send you a picture. Hey, I had that buck. I had zero people reach out to me. That just shows you how isolated these deer are. The deer numbers, like I said, are not great. Like, you're talking about, 4 or 5 bucks being on all that ground I could hunt in those little wood blocks. So not a lot of high deer density. So therefore that's low stress, low hunt. Not very many people hunt around this area. And you got to be really persistent. So just kind of reassure me, hey, that, you just got to be patient, try to figure them out, use the water to access and
Yeah, I feel like with the big buck we killed, I feel like people get kind of discouraged when they have a smaller piece and he's not there a lot. But the deer could just not move a lot. That's like the big one we killed. No one had pictures of that deer. No one knew he existed besides us. And he wasn't on our piece a lot. So that just goes to show you, like, okay, maybe he was just 70 yards on the other side of the fence. And that's where he lived most of his life, and 70 yards onto the neighbor, and the neighbor had no pictures of him, and I kill him, and I'm thinking we're going to get, boatloads of people messaging. Nothing. No one had trail cam pictures of him.
I'm saying
he's a complete ghost.
When you got 12 or so cams on 26 acres, you're going to know when the deer's there or not there.
Yeah. We're running those out that butt on this deer.
Mobiles are, I kind of got to a point where I didn't like using trail cameras because I was having to go in and check them and all that stuff and getting so addicted to hunting just the cameras. But man, the mobiles, they're hard to beat, especially if some specific oak trees that drop and you can hang them on some freshly dropping oaks like October, 5th to the 15th. You can really take advantage on a cell cam. There's for sure a lot of benefit with them. I mean, people, I feel like we hunt cameras too much, but the cell cams change everything up. I would rather have 2 cell cams than freaking 15 regular cameras. Matter of fact, I will not.
That's what we say. We just keep getting more cell cams and more cell cams and more. We just said, you're like, when you're a dad and you have kids, your time's already limited, and you're like, okay, if I calculate the cost of this cell cam with going and having the time I have to do to go pull all these other cams, super worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got a cam that you got to take an hour and a half to pull, and okay, I save an hour and a half every 2 weeks all season. That shit adds up quick. That's a whole nother hunt, so, and that's one cam. You got 10 of them, you're saving hella time. So that's how I
and you're not wasting your time checking a freaking camera, when you go in, you're going in to hunt,
and you're not taking that card home, going through it. You're looking at that at work, making a game plan. Like, oh yeah, this deer's there. I got to make a game plan instead of pulling the card, coming home. Oh crap! I should have made a game plan 3 days ago. Or I'm suddenly sick at work. Yeah, I just feel terrible at work all of a sudden. I
shoot it at 10:30 on the straight tree. All right, I'm going.
Yeah, I need to get out.
That sucks. That's for sure. That's the worst part about them is when you're working and you can't go and you're like, man, there he is.
There he is right there. But, all right, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on. I know you're still at the pharmacy with us, and I appreciate you coming on to tell the listeners our story. An Arkansas giant. That I think this is only the second Arkansas legend we've had on. So the big ones are still out there in the South. Get out there and put the work in and try to get it done, man. We appreciate you coming on.
Right. Thanks for inviting me. I had a great time. Thanks, guys.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, dude. That was awesome.